Quick question: did Bradley ever beat a monkey with a sword? I'm just asking.
I mean,
It's a yes or no. It's a yes or no.
I don't think so. Welcome back to Why Who Wins, guys. Today we have swordsman versus swordsman and Wrath / King Bradley versus Wolf / Sekiro. And I really think this is one of our more even matchups, actually, where they're both the respected swordsmen of their universe. They're very unfuckwithable, but one is a human and can die, and one maybe has a life or two in the bag just in case. So I think it's an interesting matchup. I am leaning more King Bradley. I think he is actually one of the more badass characters in Full Metal Alchemist, even though he stands apart in the universe with no alchemy and such. But I think the cool thing about him specifically is that he is untouchable in the show for the most part. If he can see you, you're not touching him. He's so fast. He has 5 swords, and he is proficient with all of those swords. He's able to take down Homunculus by himself, that other characters in the show that are very proficient in alchemy have to double team, triple team to take care of. And I think that's what makes him so interesting as a character in that show.
Bradley is 60 years old, oldest man in the show, arguably. 60
True.
years old. So he's not in his prime. Sekiro, 24 years old, maybe the most elite nigga of all time in his respective universe. I think Bradley has a lot to offer Sekiro in terms of the actual swordsmanship battle, but I'm going to say this. This will be a recurring theme in this podcast. The caliber of swordsman that Sekiro faces on the daily, the common enemy in Sekiro is just another samurai who's pretty much dedicated his entire life to the sword. Not to mention all the bosses that are beyond unfuckwithable. Anybody who's played Sekiro knows for a fact that they are unfuckwittable on a deep and painful level. Bradley only does his work against people who have never actually wielded a sword in a meaningful way before. Like, what Sekiro faces every day is more than Bradley has faced in the series ever, by far as swordsmanship goes. That's my main takeaway from this, is that the caliber of enemy that Sekiro faces constantly, not to mention like the highs of the highs with the amount of bosses that he faces that have fucking metahuman abilities, damn near, have superpowers almost, is way different from anything Bradley has or ever will face. I think Bradley's swordsmanship level is great in Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. I think Sekiro's swordsmanship level is just all-time great, period. If you take into context what he does on the regular.
Bradley is unfuckwithable in his respective universe, but I do agree with Dallas. It just comes down to, and it's not that it's an inexperience or anything with Bradley. It's just there's just so many people in the Sekiro universe that are living by the sword, in the trenches daily. Whereas Bradley, he's got a lot of highlights where he's fighting a bunch of stronger people. But I just feel like when you're somebody like Sekiro, when that's just what it is, like he's a bodyguard with the sword. Like that's just what it is. That's what he does every day. I don't think that the ultimate eye would be enough to keep up with Sekiro. I'm sure he's got feats of stronger villains or stronger swordsmen or faster swordsmen. I just don't know if he would be able to keep up. I think the skill is there, but I just think that there's just too much of a gap in experience and battle intelligence.
Listen, one, King Bradley, very similar to Sekiro. Our boy was bred for this shit, literally. He was made to be a king. He was made in a group of people to see who could become the homunculus of Wrath and actually become this like puppet for father. And he becomes the king of this country and is still the most unfuckwithable person. Now, the point about the swordsmanship, I do agree. There's no one else in the show that can match him with swordsmanship. And there's a lot of, in Full Metal Alchemist, there is a lot of like reliance on the alchemy, and I think that King Bradley takes that to his advantage. He knows that takes time, whereas Bradley is so fast. He goes in, he cuts you up, he fucks you up, you're gone. That you don't even know what happened when he does it. Multiple times in the show, he stabs so many times, like more than like 5 or 6 times. Nobody even sees that he unsheathed the sword. There's multiple times he destroys transmutations of like giant walls and shit while he's fighting Scar. He slices all of them up into like 1,000 pieces while he's charging at Scar. So speed wise, I'm going to assume they're about on the same playing field. I think the advantage that King Bradley has, where Sekiro specifically with swordsmanship, is that as long as he's in the visual prowess of his eye, it's going to be real hard for Sekiro to get that killing blow because King Bradley is so aware of his mortality. He mentions that so many times in the show that his homunculus brothers and sisters are basically unkillable, whereas he is just a person. And because of that, he's trained himself to be untouchable. And while he is superhuman to that degree, he is an older guy. He is out of his prime, theoretically. And he's able to take on the military by himself. He's able to take on Scar, who at this point in the show is like very well known to be unfuckwithable for the most part. So I think the swordsman battle is so interesting because I think if King Bradley is fighting him one-on-one, what is Sekiro's answer to always being blocked? Like, what's the finesse of never being able to actually hit King Bradley?
This would be my response to that. Make good points. I think the ultimate eye is huge. Not to repeat the point, but if we're judging off reactionary speeds, and we have one guy who's faced a group of people who are much, 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 much slower than himself, and also are capped out by just human ability, right? Like people in Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, there's a lot of just regular humans in there. Even guys like Scar. Scar's like fucking LeBron James of that world. Like, I mean, he's a freak. Nobody can actually move like Scar. He's an anomaly, even in Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. So most of the time, he's facing in shape regular ass people. It's easy to say that his reaction time is on par, or not on par, but superior to those people. But I'd say if we have that group, the guy who faces regular guys, now he does block bullets and everything. We have to give him a lot of credit for that. But he's essentially fighting regular men one-on-one and winning versus a guy who fights people who move at crazy amplified speeds, who are insanely skilled, who's reactionary.
There's Homunculus he fights.
He does fight Homunculus.
Greed's pretty fast.
Greed's definitely fast, especially in Ling's body, too. I assume he gets all of Ling's physical traits, and Ling's pretty fucking fast. Is he faster than Sekiro, though? I don't know. I think Sekiro's caliber of opponent makes everything that he does more impressive than what Bradley does. Let's not forget, man, the military in Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is not too different from the military here in America. I want everybody to think about the people they went to school with, a family member, a friend maybe, God forbid, in the military. Is that something to write home about? Is that something to be like, I don't know. I mean, it's impressive to us as regular people. But I know some people in the military right now, average Joes, and if Scar killed them, I'd be like, fucking cool. Versus a samurai, an ancient samurai, who's been around for generations, who lives only to wipe niggas out. That's who Sekiro is messing with on the daily. I'm just saying, apples and oranges, you know? I feel like Bradley is going to be second best a lot. Second best swordsman. He's the second fastest, right? Second smartest, I think. I think you could say he has the second best mustache on the podcast, but as a different thing for a different day. That's my personal opinion. I just don't think Bradley steps. I don't think Bradley steps to Sekiro, in my opinion.
I do have a quick question because to be transparent to everyone watching and listening, I'm not familiar with Sekiro at all. Not familiar with Sekiro world. Don't know Wolf. Is it ancient like times? Is there like a year, or is it like fantasy world? Like what's the parameters of that world?
It's definitely fantasy world, but I think it's mostly exist in feudal Japan.
Okay.
So time period wise it's feudal Japan, but definitely a fantasy world. It's like monkeys with swords and shit.
Because I also don't really know, because I know it's basically the same answer for Alchemist. Fantasy past.
Quick question: did Bradley ever beat a monkey with a sword? I'm just asking.
I mean,
it's yes or no. It's yes or no.
I don't think so. But
Okay,
also,
keep going. Keep going.
does Sekiro beat a homunculus that can die more than 15 times? I
I mean,
don't think so.
not more
I
than
don't think
15, but
so.
Sekiro just kills niggas who have never died before. You know, we don't have to kill niggas 15 times. That's not what we do over here, right? We get you once, you out of here. You out of here. Niggas that's already been killed 15 times, that's not Sekiro's thing. We mostly fuck with the people who can't be fucked with. That's more what we do over here in our world. But it's cool. Keep going. I just want to know about the monkey thing, just for like.
Can he kill the people that's never been killed without the sword that kills people that's never been killed, though?
I did it many times, dog. You should watch the playthrough. It's crazy.
Shit.
Many times.
Shit. Here's my thing. With his reaction speed, I'm assuming Sekiro's on the same playing field. You know,
A little higher.
does Sekiro have something special with him that gives him the specific ability to finesse things, or is he just like that? Because like that's like Bradley's main fucking power is finessing shit.
He's just like that. He's just like that. There is techniques that Sekiro can use that gives him an even more amplified speed, which I think is actually going to be Bradley's downfall. It's like we can at least acknowledge that they're on par with one another, that they're going to be pushing each other quite a great deal. If Sekiro can reach a speed even greater than that, you think Bradley can fuck with that? Because Sekiro has specific ninjutsu attacks that take his already what I assume to be insane reactionary timing and amplify it tenfold. I mean, he's dashing across the entirety, like a large space between you and the enemy. He dashes across using specific attacks with ease. And is killing other people. Again, killing other people who move at similar speeds.
See, it's hard to gauge that, but simply because King Bradley, like when you see him fuck up the military and stuff, it's like he has such a visual prowess that when the tank is shooting at him and he cuts the missile in half, he also knows that when cutting that missile in half, the way he's cutting it, he's also fucking up the people behind him, and he knows that because he knew. Like I think the battle IQ of King Bradley, not to put anything, just because Sekiro's 24, 25, not saying that he doesn't have battle experience, because he does have way harder opponents that he's fought. Like, is Sekiro take place in like one day? What is that, like all one day or
I
some
hope
shit?
not. I say a couple days and week and some change type shit for sure.
Still, he's fighting like unkillable fucking beast and gods in a week's time versus Bradley's like 60 years and also just battle hardened shit. I mean, he's fucked up Ishvalans that Scar's pretty hard, but I'm going to imagine that Scar's race, there's multiple versions of him throughout that race that he fucked up all of them.
Yeah, sure. Ishvalans seem to be with the shits for sure. Yeah.
So I do think and that was prime Bradley also. So I do want to say that, we were not saying that, this is specifically still old Bradley, but with the battle hardness, he does have, with the visual prowess on top of that, he has the ability to use things to his advantage of that sort. I don't know if he has an answer specifically for things that Sekiro has, like any extra weapons and stuff. If he has any throwables, though, I think that's out of the question. He's going to deflect it. He can redirect it in some capacity. Not that Sekiro can't also redirect it, but it would just become like a non-thing. And is Sekiro honorable? In the way that, like, if he knew Bradley only has swords, would he be like, all right, it's swords then?
I see. It depends. That's where video game characters get a little tough, because some people, depending on how they play with Sekiro, may be honorable. If it's me, nah, fuck you. So I think Sekiro, for the most part, I feel like in almost every medium we have, because Sekiro is a shinobi, like he's a ninja. That's his whole thing. I feel like ninjas throughout have pretty much said, I'll use anyway, so long as you're dead. Like, I mean, because if we're doing the honorable thing, then like his willingness to use stealth is kind of out the window, right? For doing the honor thing. When you say that, Corey, like ninja pretty much do whatever needs to be done. If there's a disadvantage to be preyed upon, I think Sekiro's like sweet. Because I be cheesing bosses, dog. When I'm playing, I cheese. Whatever advantage.
I don't know. What you think? You think Bradley's gonna do an honorable fight and, dial it back a little bit for the sake of, you know, being in a fight with Sekiro?
Not
Is there
dialing it
anything that
down.
he would? You said not dialing it down.
I
What
don't
do
I
you mean?
don't
What do you mean then?
I don't think Bradley would dial it down, but I think
Yeah.
what I mean is like I don't the way that I picture the Sekiro fight, like if it was just blade versus blade, like if Bradley didn't use 5 blades, he used one, Sekiro used
Mhm.
one blade, and it was just like last person standing kind of thing.
Oh, it's game over for Bradley.
Eh, Here's my
Game
thing
over.
though. Here's my thing. If Sekiro can die twice,
Mm-hmm.
multiple times, whatever, doesn't that also give him a little less? He has the same problem as a homunculus where he's like, well, I can die once. It's all good. Whereas Wrath slash King Bradley is he's so fucking aware that he can die. And because of that, with his eye, he is so on top of anything coming his way. Sekiro's charging at him doesn't matter. He's got precognition basically because he's so accurate. I mean, he doesn't actually have precognition, but he's on top of it to the point where if Sekiro was coming at him, he knows what's happening. And when he's about to die, is still going out so fucking hard. He doesn't have any fucking arms, grabs a blade with his teeth, and still stabs Scar.
I think that's a good point, right? It's like Bradley's always going to be fighting with a sense of urgency that Sekiro probably can't match the first time. So let's say Bradley washes Sekiro, or let's just say it's a somewhat even exchange. Both leave a little wounded, and then he kills Sekiro, cuts his head off. Sekiro then is reborn, comes back, spawns back to life, injuries healed. So now we have a wounded Bradley with a Sekiro whose injuries are healed, who now has the sense of urgency, knowing that he can die. I feel like that works more in Sekiro's favor than Bradley's. It's like if we can be comparable and at least wound Bradley the first time around, very similar to how you play the game. You have a certain bar on the boss that you want to get to before you actually have to use your revive. And then when you use your revival, you fight differently and with a bit more focus. I think the same could be said for Sekiro in this circumstance. The only thing that happens is that Bradley walks away a bit more fucked up and Sekiro comes back brand new, newfound focus. Bradley's not fucking with him, dog. And that one sword thing you're talking about, oh man, that's not even fair. Bradley needs all 5. All 5.
Okay, so I like that point. That's really cool that he can come back like wounds healed and stuff. What it is that like what's the extent of that though? Like if
What you mean?
Bradley diced him up into 1,000 pieces, is it like does there have to be a body to come back to? Like what's the extent of dying in that game? I know it's like the
You
parameters of the game though.
Sure. You never die in the actual, you never get cut up or anything in the actual game. Of course, like you don't get beheaded or anything like that. But when you come back to life, there's like this sort of like sparky animation surrounding it that suggests that like you were born a new body. Like, right, Corey, it's like a weird kind of animation
Yeah.
that to me alludes to like you just got
It's like
dropped in almost.
like a rebirth instead of like a getting back up kind of thing, like being
Yeah.
reborn again.
Yeah, it seems like you could just kind of conjure yourself out of thin air almost. So to me, that to me suggests brand new body. But I will say, it does lessen Sekiro's power, so to speak, because that's a thing. There's a thing called Dragon's Rot, where it's like if you continuously die, then you can get afflicted with a disease that slowly kills you. But I don't think I don't think Bradley can kill Sekiro multiple times. And for the sake of argument, we can't really put Bradley up against somebody who keeps rebirthing. For the sake of argument, we give Sekiro the one. I think that his abilities would be a bit lessened, but I think you could say the same for Bradley having been injured. And then I think it becomes a much more even fight again. I think the big problem for Bradley would be like the way he fights. Not to get too fucking nerdy about it, but it's like Bradley fights with the rapier, which is like mostly like thrusting, right? Sekiro has this thing called the Makiri counter that pretty much is anytime somebody does a thrusting attack, even this quote unquote unblockable attacks in the game, he can counter it with ease and usually lands like a pretty fatal blow. The question would be, is Bradley skilled enough, especially with an additional sword? Because I will say that's where there's a few enemies with 2 swords in Sekiro, not 5. It's like with Bradley, with all the additional swords, would he be able to compensate for that? But it's like if Sekiro were to hit that counter, if Sekiro has a seemingly unfuckwithable counter on any piercing attacks, and Bradley generally only fights by piercing, I think Bradley's getting fucked up.
Since he does have the one life, even if he blitzed as hard as he could, took Sekiro by advantage, fucked him up. If you're saying even if he was diced up, that he comes back as a reborn body, and Bradley did sustain those injuries, I don't see a scenario where Sekiro takes that lightly and says,
Yeah.
"Okay, I'm a let this pass." Then he killed me one time. It's all good. Like he's probably going to go that much harder, which I assume in the game is also the case.
Sure. Here's another thing with Bradley, man. We got to get this down to intangibles, dog. Bradley has niggas spooked in Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Everybody's scared of Bradley. Bradley walked through everybody. Everybody go quiet. Everybody goes quiet. Sekiro, unfazed by that, dog. Unbeatable niggas, that's just what we do. That's the 9 to 5. That's just the type of shit we're on over here. Niggas is supposed to be all this, all that. Sekiro overthrew a whole kingdom, essentially. Supposed to be at the end, there's a boss fight with pretty much like the greatest swordsman of all time. Who pretty much is responsible for everything that happened to the game at that point. He's headless now, dog. Nigga is no more. Bradley, all I'm saying is his final fight was against the one man, in my opinion, who thought he was bitch made. Couldn't punk Scar down. And now Bradley's dead. I don't think that's a coinky dink. Me personally.
Hey.
Me personally. So I think Sekiro gonna look at Bradley like, oh, that's cool. You got everybody shaking their boots over there. But to me, to Big Wolf, you soft.
Hey,
you soft.
That's a good point. Except when he goes to fight Scar, when he goes to fight Scar, he's already half dead already. He's already taken out the entire military. He fought a homunculus.
We talked about the people in the military, dog. We talked about who's in the military. Think of your cousin, a friend, a coworker.
Hey, this is a different time.
You know, Toby niggas and told me they served before, dog. Nah, man.
This is a different time, though. This is like you had a military job or you were in the fucking streets, dog. That's pretty much all you had.
That shit is rough over there, dog. They had dudes turning their daughters into fucking cats and shit. It's
oh, yeah. Totally weird-ass fucking world. But when he does fight Scar, and this is a testament to Bradley, but also Scar in general, when he does fight Scar, the unfuckwithable guy in the show, he's half dead already. He's been stabbed. Mm-hmm. He's been cut in the face. He's tired. He fell like hundreds of feet into the water and swam to wherever the fuck was going on. Saw his Ishvalan ass and was like, bro, I guess I don't believe in heaven. I don't believe in God, but this is divine shit right here. And my only counterpoint to this is if Sekiro wasn't the main character, his ass would be dead. But he's the main character, dog. Unfortunately, he's the main character. He has the plot armor of not dying. You're controlling the character that's supposed to win the game.
You're looking at it wrong, dog. You're looking at it all wrong. You're looking at it, it's like, Sekiro is Sekiro because he's the main character. And it's like, no, he's the main character because he's Sekiro. That's what you meant. That's what you're not understanding. That's what you're not getting. That's what you're not getting.
No, dog.
There's no other. Who else gonna be the main character in Sekiro, Corey? The dead niggas? Oh, wait. They're dead. They got sliced up. Nobody left. It's got to be him.
The King Bradley show's coming soon. Don't you worry.
I hope so, dog. I hope so. Listen, I'm not saying Bradley a bitch. He's just a bitch in every other world. That's all I'm saying. In his world, top G. Greatest to ever do it. Pimp of pimps. Maybe not a harder nigga alive than Bradley in Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. But you got to think, Bradley's moment of realization in the show, he gave maybe the hardest speech of all time, where he was just explaining to Scar the seriousness of the moment where they are two nameless men fighting to the death, and how this is this big thing, this big moment. That's every day for Sekiro, dog. That's every day. That's every day. And unlike Scar, Sekiro got a name. My name is Wolf. So you a nameless nigga, not me. I know exactly who I am. You non-confident bitch. Bradley's gonna die. He has no chance. Really think about this. Okay, so here's my thing with Bradley, right? Here's my thing with Bradley. Even if Bradley does kill him, Bradley, because we have to look at his ultimate eye. Because I think ultimate eye is actually Bradley's greatest strength in this, because it kind of leads them to at least a stalemate, right? Like you could argue just endless counters, because it's two people who I think their greatest strength comes from their ability not to attack people, but to be reactionary to attacks. I think even if Bradley lands the killing blow on Sekiro, the way his ultimate eye works, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but it has to be within his line of vision for it to work. Bradley kills Sekiro, walks away, because I don't think Bradley's the sort of person to waste a lot of time standing over someone's body. It seems like he kills Sekiro. That's business as usual for him, right? Walks off to go listen to his bitch ass son give him orders or whatever it is that Bradley does. No. Right? Sekiro revives himself. Sekiro is like master of stealth. He's a ninja. There are points in time where you sneak up on what's essentially other ninjas in Sekiro. Bradley's dead. Killing blow right then. Because I don't think Bradley would act. I think Bradley has a sort of code about him. Like I think for Bradley, it would almost be beneath him to sneak up on someone as if to suggest that he needs to. Not Sekiro, dog. Get it how you live. Definitely getting murdered from behind. No problem. I think that will be the deciding factor, is that even if Bradley wins, when he turns to walk away, Sekiro will revive himself and he will be behind Bradley. And assuming his speed is that of Bradley's, he could probably get to Bradley before Bradley even thinks about turning around. And because Bradley doesn't have him in his sight, there's multiple times in the show in which Bradley does get injured because he cannot see something. So Sekiro's got the drop on him from behind, and Bradley doesn't have his ultimate eye abilities because Sekiro's out of sight. I don't see a scenario where Sekiro doesn't kill him. I think face-to-face, mano-a-mano, is actually a pretty close fight, especially with Bradley having 5 swords, all of which he seems to kind of use in conjunction with one another. I think it's a super close fight, just straight up. But I just think that Sekiro's willingness to do anything to win, while Bradley still has a certain kind of dignity or presence about him, a bravado that he has to maintain, is always going to make. If you have a second life and you're willing to do things that the other person isn't, I think it's always going to lean in your favor.
I think it's the experience with other swordsmen. I think that's what does it. Bradley just has a lot of he's the sword guy, right? And in Full Metal, I'm not super familiar with it. I've seen the highlights or whatnot, but I mean, you're looking at like Sekiro, like the first guy that you encounter with a sword could be a Bradley in the game.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Could be a lot of Bradleys walk around.
It could be a lot of Bradleys. Like it's when you're looking at like his kit, and we're letting him use his entire kit. You can see things. And you're fast with your sword, and you got multiple swords, which still, I don't know if there's a lot of characters in Sekiro that carry 2, let alone 3, 4, or 5.
Yeah.
And who knows if they had them, they just didn't get ice before they got to use them, because Sekiro is really just fucking like that. But I just think there's too many other swordsman kind of people in the show and in the game, where I still think it's close though, to an extent though. I still think it can be a split thing.
I think the real gap between them is like how Sekiro has multiple techniques he can actually use, like moves, like an actual move set. Bradley's just fighting. It's just normal moves. And that's cool. I mean, again, video game format kind of lends itself towards stuff like this. But Sekiro has like multiple techniques that amplify his speed and reaction time significantly. And it's just hard for me to believe that if Greed is able to weave some of Bradley's attacks, and that people are able, because I mean, we've actually seen Bradley get hit before without there being some bullshit. Maybe it's an idle kick here, an idle kick there. Bradley's never been bested, so to speak, one-on-one, but he's had moments of falter, as anyone would in a fight, right? It's hard to believe he's having those against Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood characters, that he won't have many against someone moving even faster than him, significantly so. If what Corey said, and there could be a lot of Bradleys walking around Sekiro, which I think it's safe to say that there could be, and that there is. And Sekiro's attacks work on them. Why would they not work on Bradley?
I think from a closing argument standpoint, you guys make a great point. There's not really enough hacks on Bradley's end that put the fight in his favor, and especially if Bradley does get a killing blow on Sekiro, and then Sekiro comes right back. And in the scenario that Bradley starts to walk away, business done, I agree. He's getting axed.
Yeah.
There's no special durability that Bradley has that wouldn't be matched by other characters in Sekiro. So I think if you put it in a simulator, 9 times out of 10, it's going to Sekiro. I only see one scenario where Bradley comes out on top, and that's just he's able to turn around once he revives, and he knows, okay, I got to put this dude down. Because when Bradley does realize, or he knows Greed has to die multiple times, as soon as that clicks in Bradley's head that this guy can come back from mortal blows that normally would kill people, he would know, okay, I can't stop. I got to make sure this dude stays down.
Yeah. You could almost liken it to our last episode where it's like statistically, Jason and Michael Myers probably are pretty similar. But it's just the fact that one of them isn't entirely human. It's just the fact that one of them can actually come back to life and is seemingly unkillable. It's just that one intangible thing, but it's a big one, because how do you overcome that?
It's a good fight. And maybe if Sekiro doesn't have multiple lives, it's a different conversation.
For sure. Definitely
if Sekiro knows he can't come back, maybe it's a completely different ball game. But his whole shtick, just like Bradley's whole shtick is his eye, Sekiro's shtick is I can come back. So taking that away from him takes away the specialness of Sekiro. So I don't want to take away from that character. I mean, hell, the name of the game, Shadows, died twice, right?
Yeah.
I do want to put in the poll of the fans that voted in, because I do want to see what they say. They're putting King Bradley. There's no stipulations to this. We don't know how many of y'all voted that know both the characters. We don't know if y'all are some Full Metal Alchemist fanboys. We don't know what's going on.
I want to hear the logic behind you guys picking Bradley. Like, have you played Sekiro?
I think they have played Sekiro, and it's like a hate relationship with it. Like the game just
I'm also in an abusive relationship with Sekiro. That is fair.
I think when it comes down, if Sekiro wins or not, it's like, who's controlling the sticks? If I'm controlling the sticks, Bradley's got it.
Somebody else. I mean, if I'm playing, Bradley is definitely dragging nuts across Sekiro for sure. That's not even close, unfortunately.
So
someone like good, if someone's good playing, probably Sekiro.
I do like that King Bradley's getting repped by more people at a 32 votes, 72%.
Yeah,
that's a good bit.
I fought with King Bradley, man. He's one of the coldest dudes ever.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
still that guy though. Still that guy
for sure.
He's against God.
Oh, everybody's gotta make sure they know. Everybody here on the podcast, we don't hate any of these characters.
No,
Bradley's that guy, and we all think Bradley's that guy. Unless I tell you I hate a specific character, we love them. All right, and I'll be very vocal if I don't like a character. I can't wait for that episode one day.
I'll go ahead and tell you guys they're losing. They're losing the episode. Go ahead, spoil it for you. They're losing.
But I do want to know if you guys have any thoughts on if you think King Bradley would win. Maybe I didn't debate it as well as you would. Let us know in the comments below. We'll continue to debate in the comments if you guys want to keep going, because we'd love to keep the conversation going, because that's the whole point of this thing, is getting you in the conversation, see what you think. And in future polls that we're going to add into the podcast, if you have any comments that you already have your arguments and you want to put those in, we'd love to add those in, because I'd love some help in the debate. And I'm sure if Dallas ever goes solo again, he'll want some help, and if Corey goes solo, he'll want some help. So join in the discussion. We definitely want you to join in on that. And if you have any suggestions on who you think should be in future Why Who Wins podcast, go ahead and drop that in the comments too, because we'd love to know your thoughts on some of those things. And if you like this podcast, go ahead and give it a like. And if you're new to the Dork Side, subscribe. And if you want to catch Jason Voorhees versus Michael Myers, that was last week's podcast. So go ahead and check that out right here. And until the next time, guys, peace.